The day my son told me his girlfriend was pregnant, I thought my world was about to change. I never imagined the baby wasn't his. It started with a knock on my bedroom door. I was folding laundry, the afternoon sun slanting through the window, making patterns on the carpet. My son, Ethan, stood in the doorway, his hands shoved deep in his pockets, his face pale. "Mom, can we talk?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I set the laundry basket aside and patted the bed. "Of course, honey. What's going on?" He sat down, staring at his hands. For a moment, I thought he was going to tell me he failed a class or gotten into a fight at school. But then he looked up, his eyes shining with something I couldn't name, fear, hope, maybe both. "Jenna's pregnant," he said, the words tumbling out in a rush. "She just found out. She told me last night." I felt my heart skip a beat. Ethan was only 19, a sophomore in college, still living at home to save money. He'd been dating Jenna for almost a year, a sweet, shy girl who always said thank you and helped me clear the table after dinner. I liked her. I trusted her, but this was not the news I'd expected. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "How do you feel about it?" He shrugged, his shoulders slumping. "I don't know, scared, I guess, but I want to do the right thing. I want to be there for her, for the baby." I reached for his hand, squeezing it tight. "We'll figure it out. Whatever you need, I'm here." He nodded, relief flooding his face. "Thanks, Mom." That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. I thought about Ethan as a little boy, his first steps, his first day of school, the way he used to crawl into bed with me during thunderstorms. I thought about Jenna, about the way she looked at Ethan, about the way she laughed at his jokes, about the way she always seemed a little nervous around me. I wondered if they were ready for this. I wondered if I was. The next day, Jenna came over for dinner. She looked tired, her eyes rimmed with red, her hands trembling as she picked at her food. Ethan sat beside her, his arm around her shoulders, his face set in a mask of determination. After dinner, I made tea and sat with them at the kitchen table. "Have you told your parents?" I asked Jenna gently. She shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I'm scared, Mrs. Carter. They're going to be so disappointed." I reached across the table, taking her hand in mine. "You're not alone. We'll get through this together." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "Thank you." Ethan squeezed her hand, his jaw clenched. "We're going to be a family. I'll get a job, help out more, I promise." I smiled, pride and fear warring in my chest. "We'll figure it out, one step at a time." That night after they left, I called my sister, Linda. I told her everything, Ethan, Jenna, the baby. She was quiet for a long moment. "Are you okay?" I laughed, the sound shaky. "I don't know, I just want to do the right thing, for Ethan, for Jenna, for the baby." Linda sighed. "You always do, Anna, just trust your instincts." I hung up, feeling a little lighter. Maybe we could do this. Maybe we could make it work. But deep down, a seed of doubt had started to grow. The days that followed were a blur of appointments and whispered conversations. Ethan and Jenna went to the doctor together, coming home with a blurry ultrasound photo and a stack of pamphlets about prenatal vitamins and healthy eating. Jenna's parents took the news better than she'd feared. Her mother cried, her father paced the kitchen, but in the end, they promised to support her. Ethan started working extra shifts at the grocery store, coming home late and exhausted, but always stopping by Jenna's house before bed. I watched him grow up almost overnight, his shoulders a little straighter, his voice a little deeper, his eyes a little older. Jenna spent more time at our house, curling up on the couch with Ethan, helping me cook dinner, folding laundry while we talked about baby names and nursery colors. She was still quiet, still nervous, but I could see her trying to be brave, trying to be strong, trying to believe that everything would be okay. I tried to be supportive, to offer advice without overwhelming her, to give them space without making them feel abandoned. I bought a stack of parenting books, started knitting a baby blanket, made lists of things we'd need: crib, car seat, diapers, bottles. I wanted to be ready, wanted to make this as easy as possible for them. But sometimes, late at night, I'd find myself standing in the nursery, staring at the empty crib, wondering if we were all in over our heads. One Saturday, Jenna's parents invited us over for dinner. It was the first time our families had been together since the news broke. The meal was awkward at first, polite conversation, forced smiles, everyone tiptoeing around the subject of the baby. But as the evening went on, something shifted. Jenna's mother brought out old photo albums showing pictures of Jenna as a baby, her first steps, her first birthday, her first day of school. Ethan laughed, teasing Jenna about her chubby cheeks and wild hair. Jenna blushed, but I could see the love in her eyes. After dinner, Jenna's father pulled Ethan aside. I watched from the kitchen window as they talked in the backyard, their voices low and serious. When they came back in, Ethan's face was pale but determined. "He just wanted to make sure I was going to do right by Jenna," Ethan said later as we drove home. "I told him I would. I meant it, Mom." I squeezed his hand, pride swelling in my chest. "I know you did, honey. I know you did." As the weeks passed, the excitement grew. Jenna started showing, her belly rounding beneath her sweaters. Ethan painted the nursery, assembling the crib with a determination that made me smile. We went shopping for baby clothes, arguing over colors and patterns, laughing at the tiny socks and hats. For a little while, it felt like everything might be okay. But then small things started to nag at me. Jenna was moody, more than just the usual pregnancy hormones. She snapped at Ethan, pulled away from me, spent hours alone in her room. Ethan tried to brush it off, saying she was just tired, just stressed, just scared. But I saw the way she looked at him sometimes, guilty, almost afraid. I saw the way she avoided my eyes, the way she flinched when I asked about the baby's due date, the way she hesitated before answering questions about her doctor's appointments. I tried to ignore it, tried to believe that everything was fine. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. It was a Tuesday evening when the first real crack appeared. I was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables for dinner, when I overheard Ethan and Jenna talking in the living room. Their voices were low, tense. The kind of conversation you try to keep private, but can't quite hide in a small house. "I just want to know, Jen," Ethan said, his voice tight. "Why won't you let me come to your next appointment?" Jenna's reply was muffled, but I caught the edge in her tone. "I told you it's just a checkup. My mom's coming. You have work anyway." There was a long pause. I heard the couch creak as Ethan shifted. "I want to be there. I want to hear the heartbeat. I want to see the baby." Jenna's voice broke. "Please, Ethan, just let it go." I stood in the kitchen, my hands frozen on the cutting board, listening to the silence that followed. I wanted to go to them to ask what was wrong, to fix it, but I stayed where I was, my heart pounding. That night, after Jenna went home, Ethan came into the kitchen, his face pale. "Is everything okay?" I asked, trying to keep my voice gentle. He shook his head, sinking into a chair. "I don't know, Mom. She's different. She won't talk to me. She won't let me come to her appointments. She says she's just tired, but I don't know." I sat beside him, rubbing his back. "Maybe she's scared. Maybe she just needs time." He nodded, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. The next day, I called Jenna, inviting her over for tea. She arrived looking exhausted, her eyes rimmed with red, her hands trembling as she held her cup. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" I asked, reaching across the table. She nodded, but her smile was forced. "Just tired. The baby's keeping me up at night." I tried to believe her, but I saw the way her eyes darted around the room, the way she flinched when I mentioned Ethan, the way she avoided talking about the future. After she left, I found myself packing the kitchen, replaying every conversation, every look, every hesitation. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe that everything was fine, but the doubt was growing, gnawing at the edges of my heart. A week later, Ethan came home from work, his face ashen. "Mom," he said, his voice shaking, "I found something." He handed me a piece of paper, a receipt from a clinic across town, dated 2 weeks before Jenna found out she was pregnant. The name on the receipt wasn't hers, but the handwriting was familiar. "She said she was at her friend's house that day," Ethan whispered. "But she was at the clinic. Why would she lie?" I stared at the receipt, my mind racing. I wanted to believe there was an explanation, that it was all a misunderstanding. But deep down, I knew the truth was about to come out. That night, Ethan barely touched his dinner. He sat at the table, staring at the receipt, his hands shaking. I tried to make conversation, but he just shook his head, pushing his plate away. "I need to talk to her," he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Jenna came over after work, her face drawn, her eyes wary. She sat on the edge of the couch, twisting her hands in her lap. Ethan sat across from her, the receipt clutched in his fist. "Why did you lie to me?" he asked, his voice trembling. "Why were you at the clinic?" Jenna's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I didn't know how to tell you. I was scared." He leaned forward, his voice breaking. "Tell me what, Jenna? Please, I deserve the truth." She took a deep breath, her shoulders shaking. "I found out I was pregnant, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if it was yours." The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. I felt my heart drop, the room spinning around me. Ethan stared at her, his face pale. "What do you mean?" Jenna wiped her eyes, her voice barely audible. "I made a mistake. Before we got together, I was seeing someone else. Just once, right before you and I started dating. I thought it was over, but then I found out I was pregnant. I wanted it to be yours, Ethan. I wanted us to be a family, but I wasn't sure." Ethan's hands clenched into fists. "So you lied to me. You let me believe this was my baby." Jenna sobbed, her whole body shaking. "I'm sorry. I was going to tell you. I didn't want to lose you." Ethan stood, his chair scraping against the floor. "I need some air." He walked out the front door, leaving Jenna sobbing on the couch. I sat beside her, my own heart breaking. I wanted to be angry, wanted to yell, wanted to demand answers. But all I could do was hold her as she cried, her tears soaking my shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Mrs. Carter," she whispered. "I never meant to hurt him. I never meant to hurt you." I stroked her hair, my own tears falling. "I know, Jenna, but you have to tell the truth. You have to face what you've done." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I will, I promise." Ethan didn't come home that night. I sat up waiting, my heart pounding, my mind racing. I called Ruth, telling her everything. She listened, her voice gentle. "You did the right thing, Anna. You can't protect him from the truth. He has to face it." I nodded, staring at the empty driveway, praying that my son would find his way back to us. Ethan came home just after sunrise. I heard the front door open and close, the soft thud of his shoes in the hallway. I found him sitting at the kitchen table, his head in his hands, the first light of morning spilling across his shoulders. I poured him a cup of coffee and sat down across from him. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The house was quiet, the only sound the ticking of the old clock on the wall. Finally, Ethan looked up, his eyes red and swollen. "I don't know what to do, Mom. I love her. I thought we were going to be a family, but now I don't even know who the father is." I reached for his hand, squeezing it tight. "You don't have to decide anything right now. You just have to breathe, one step at a time." He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I just feel so stupid. How could I not have known?" I shook my head, my own eyes filling with tears. "You trusted her, Ethan. That's not stupid. That's love." Later that day, Jenna came over. She looked exhausted, her face pale, her hands trembling. She sat at the table, her eyes fixed on Ethan. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I know I should have told you. I was scared. I didn't want to lose you." Ethan's voice was quiet but steady. "We need to know the truth, Jenna. We need a paternity test." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I'll do whatever you want. I want you to know I never meant to hurt you." He nodded, his jaw clenched. "I know, but we can't move forward until we know." The next week was a blur of doctor's appointments and awkward silences. Jenna's parents were supportive, but I could see the strain in their eyes. Ethan went to work, came home, ate dinner in silence. I tried to keep things normal, cooking his favorite meals, leaving notes in his lunch, sitting with him in the evenings, but the distance between us felt like a canyon. The day of the test, I drove Ethan and Jenna to the clinic. The waiting room was quiet, the air thick with tension. Jenna sat with her hands folded in her lap, staring at the floor. Ethan stared out the window, his face unreadable. Afterwards, we drove home in silence. The results would take a week. That week felt like a lifetime. Ethan barely spoke, barely ate, barely slept. Jenna called every day, but he rarely answered. I tried to be there for both of them, but I felt helpless, caught between my love for my son and my compassion for the girl who had made a terrible mistake. One night, Ethan came into my room, sitting on the edge of the bed. "Do you think I should forgive her, Mom, if the baby isn't mine?" I thought about it for a long moment. "I think forgiveness is a gift you give yourself, Ethan. It doesn't mean you have to stay. It just means you let go of the anger so you can move on." He nodded, his eyes shining. "I don't know if I can, but I want to try." The results came in on a rainy Thursday afternoon. Jenna called, her voice shaking. "It's not Ethan," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Ethan sat at the kitchen table, staring at the envelope, his hands trembling. I sat beside him, my heart breaking. He took a deep breath, then stood. "I need to talk to her." He left, the door closing softly behind him. I sat in the quiet house, listening to the rain, praying that my son would find the strength to forgive, not just Jenna, but himself. Ethan was gone for hours. I tried to keep busy, folding laundry, watering the plants, making soup I knew he probably wouldn't eat. I kept glancing at the clock, listening for the sound of his car in the driveway, praying that he would come home with some kind of peace in his heart. When he finally returned, the sky was dark and the house was quiet. He came into the kitchen, his hair damp from the rain, his eyes tired but clear. I set a mug of tea in front of him and waited. He took a long sip, then looked at me. "I talked to Jenna. We cried a lot. She told me everything, about the other guy, about how scared she was, about how she wanted to believe the baby was mine because she wanted a future with me." He paused, his voice steady. "I told her I forgave her. I told her I wanted her to have a good life, and I'd help however I could. But I can't be with her, Mom. I can't raise a child that isn't mine, not after all the lies." I reached for his hand, feeling both relief and sorrow. "I'm proud of you, Ethan. That took courage." He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. "I still love her, but I love myself too. I have to." The weeks that followed were hard, but there was a new kind of peace in our home. Ethan started going out with friends again, slowly reclaiming pieces of his old life. He threw himself into work, started running in the mornings, even signed up for a class at the community college. Jenna moved back in with her parents. She called a few times, sometimes just to talk, sometimes to apologize again. I listened, offering kindness but keeping my distance. I knew she needed to find her own way, just as Ethan did. Ruth came to visit, bringing casseroles and stories and the kind of laughter that fills a house with hope. We sat on the porch one evening, watching the sun set, talking about forgiveness and second chances. "You did the right thing, Anna," she said. "You let Ethan make his own choices. You loved him through it." I smiled, feeling the truth of her words settle in my heart. I just want him to be happy. I want him to know he's enough. As the months passed, the pain faded. Ethan met someone new, a kind, gentle girl named Marissa who made him laugh and brought out the best in him. They took things slow, building trust one day at a time. I watched them together, my heart swelling with hope. Jenna had her baby in the spring. She sent a photo, a tiny, perfect girl with a shock of dark hair. "Thank you for everything," she wrote. "I'm sorry for the pain I caused. I hope you and Ethan find happiness." I wrote back, wishing her well, feeling a sense of closure I hadn't expected. One evening, Ethan and I sat on the porch, watching the stars. "Do you think I'll ever stop feeling guilty, Mom?" he asked quietly. I squeezed his hand. "I think you'll learn to forgive yourself, and I think you'll find joy again. You already are." He smiled, his eyes shining. "I hope so." I hugged him close, grateful for the strength we'd both found in the hardest season of our lives. As summer turned to fall, the house felt different, quieter, but also lighter. Ethan's laughter returned, slow at first, then more often. He started spending more time with his old friends, going to movies, hiking on weekends, even joining a local soccer league. I watched him from the kitchen window one Saturday, running across the field, his face flushed with effort and joy. For the first time in months, I saw a glimpse of the boy he used to be and the man he was becoming. I found myself healing, too. I started volunteering at the library, helping children pick out books, reading stories during Saturday morning story hour. I joined a book club, made new friends, and even took a painting class at the community center. I realized how much I'd put my own life on hold, how much I'd focused on being a mother, a caretaker, a fixer. Now I was learning to be Anna again, just Anna. Ruth visited often, bringing her easy laughter and her gentle wisdom. We spent long evenings on the porch, sipping tea, talking about everything and nothing. She reminded me that life was full of second chances, that forgiveness was a gift we gave ourselves, that happiness could be found in the smallest moments. One afternoon, Ethan came home with Marissa. She was shy at first, but soon warmed up, helping me in the kitchen, asking about my favorite recipes, sharing stories about her own family. I watched the way she looked at Ethan, kind, steady, full of hope. I saw the way he looked at her, too, open, trusting, unafraid. After dinner, as we cleared the table, Ethan pulled me aside. "Thank you, Mom," he said, his voice soft. "For everything, for believing in me, for letting me figure things out on my own." I hugged him, tears stinging my eyes. "You did the hard part, Ethan. You chose to heal. I'm just glad I could be here for you." He smiled, his eyes shining. "I'm happy, Mom, I really am." Jenna sent another letter in the fall. She wrote about her daughter, about the challenges of being a single mom, about the support she'd found in her own family. She thanked me again for my kindness, for not turning her away, for helping her when she needed it most. I wrote back, telling her I was proud of her, that I wished her and her daughter all the happiness in the world. I meant it. I realized that forgiveness wasn't just about letting go of anger. It was about making room for compassion, for understanding, for hope. The holidays came, and with them, a new sense of peace. Ethan and Marissa joined Ruth and me for Thanksgiving, filling the house with laughter and warmth. We cooked together, played board games, watched old movies. There were moments of sadness, moments when the past threatened to intrude, but they were fleeting, replaced by gratitude for the present. On Christmas morning, Ethan gave me a framed photo of the two of us, taken on a hike the previous spring. On the back, he'd written, "Thank you for being my home." I hugged him, my heart full. "You'll always have a home with me, Ethan, always." As the new year began, I looked around at the life I'd rebuilt. The house filled with light, the laughter of friends and family, the quiet joy of ordinary days, and felt a deep, abiding sense of hope. I wasn't the same woman I'd been before Jenna's secret came out. I was stronger, wiser, more compassionate with myself and with the people I loved. I knew that life would never be perfect, that there would always be pain and loss and disappointment. But I also knew that I could survive, that I could rebuild, that I could find joy in the small, everyday moments. I was still here, I was still standing, and I was ready for whatever came next. Sometimes, the people we love most are the ones who break our hearts the deepest. I never imagined my son would face a betrayal like this, or that I'd have to watch him pick up the pieces of a future he thought was certain. But life has a way of testing us, of showing us who we are when everything we thought we could count on falls away. If you've ever had to help someone you love through heartbreak, or if you've ever had to forgive someone who hurt you, I hope you know you're not alone. Healing isn't quick and it isn't easy. But with time, honesty, and a little bit of grace, it is possible. Sometimes the real strength is in letting go, not just of the people who hurt you, but of the guilt and shame you never deserved to carry. Would you have forgiven Jenna, or tried to hold on to the anger? Have you ever had to watch your child or someone you love start over after a betrayal? Tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. If this story touched your heart, please subscribe and share it with someone who might need a little hope tonight. Thank you for listening and for being part of this family. Until next time, take care of yourself, and remember, even after the deepest heartbreak, you can still choose to begin again.